The wealthiest place on this planet is not the oil fields of the Middle East. It is not the diamond mines beneath the soil of Africa. It is not the vaults of the most powerful banks in the world. The wealthiest place on this planet is the cemetery. Because buried in that ground are businesses that were never launched, books that were never written, songs that were never sung, inventions that were never built, and people who went to their graves full of potential they never released, full of ideas they never trusted, full of gifts they never believed in enough to give. And the tragedy is not that they died. Everyone dies. The tragedy is that most of them were alive for decades and still lived as though they were already buried. Let me submit to you that the greatest crisis of this generation is not poverty. It is not war. It is not political instability. The greatest crisis is a generation of capable, gifted, and designed people who have been convinced to doubt themselves. A generation that has confused timidity with humility and called their paralysis wisdom. A generation that has buried their assignment under layers of what people might think, what might go wrong, and what has already failed. That is the real cemetery, not the one behind the church, the one we build inside ourselves, stone by stone, year by year. Every time we shrink away from what we were created to become, you don't need motivation. You need revelation, because motivation is temporary. It wears off by Thursday. But revelation rewires how you see yourself. And when you see yourself correctly, your behavior cannot stay the same. What I want to give you today is not a feeling. Feelings are weather. I want to give you a framework, a structure, a foundation that does not shift when the applause stops or when the criticism gets loud. I want to talk to you about confidence, but not the kind that is manufactured from compliments or borrowed from achievements or dependent on the right conditions. I want to talk about the kind of confidence that comes from understanding your design. Where purpose is not known, abuse is inevitable. And I want to suggest to you that where design is not understood, confidence is impossible. You cannot be confident in what you do not understand. You cannot walk boldly in a direction you have not studied. And most people who struggle with confidence are not struggling because they lack talent. They are struggling because they lack understanding of why they exist and what they were specifically built to do. That is not a motivation problem. That is a revelation problem. And so before we talk about building confidence, we must first dismantle the lie that confidence is a personality trait. Something you either have or you don't. That lie has kept too many gifted people sitting in the audience watching less equipped people occupy stages they were designed for. Let me submit to you, confidence is not a feeling. It is a conclusion. It is the conclusion a person arrives at when they have deeply studied what they were made for and accepted it without apology. Watch how I say that, without apology. Because one of the heaviest weights people carry is the guilt of being gifted, the discomfort of being different, the fear of being too much or too specific or too focused for the people around them. And so they dilute themselves, they shrink themselves, they edit themselves constantly until what remains is not even recognizable as the original design. And then we wonder why there is no confidence. You cannot be confident in a version of yourself that you invented to make others comfortable. Now let me take you deeper. A manufacturer never builds a product without a specific function in mind. Before the product exists, the purpose exists. The purpose always precedes the product. This is not complicated. This is manufacturing logic. When a company designs a commercial aircraft, they do not build the aircraft first and then try to figure out what it should do. The function comes first. The destination comes first. The weight capacity, the altitude capability, the fuel efficiency requirements. All of that is determined before a single piece of metal is shaped. The design is always subordinate to the assignment, which means if you want to understand your design, you must first understand your assignment. And your assignment is not your job title. Your assignment is the specific problem you were engineered to solve in the specific context you were placed in at the specific time you were born. This is the first principle I want to give you. Confidence is proportional to clarity of assignment. Write that down in the architecture of your thinking. Confidence is proportional to clarity of assignment. The reason most people are not confident is not because they are weak. It is because they are vague. They have a general sense that they should do something meaningful, but no specific understanding of what that something is, why it matters, and who it is designed to serve. Vagueness breeds hesitation, and hesitation over time becomes a habit, and habits become identity. And before long, the person who was hesitant once now believes hesitation is who they are. That is not identity. That is accumulated confusion masquerading as character. Let me tell you about a tree, not as a metaphor, as a manufacturing example. A mango tree does not consult the apple tree to determine whether it should produce mangoes. It does not look around at what is more popular or what the market prefers this season or what the other trees in the orchard are producing. It produces what it was designed to produce because that is what its internal architecture demands. And here is what is remarkable. The mango tree produces mangoes before anyone picks them, before anyone says thank you, before anyone validates the fruit, before the harvest is celebrated. The tree has already committed to production because the tree does not produce fruit based on external affirmation. It produces fruit based on internal design. And this is the second principle. Confidence that requires external validation is not confidence. It is performance. True confidence produces before it is applauded. It builds before it is celebrated. It shows up before it is welcomed because it is not responding to the crowd. It is responding to its own design. The problem with most people is that they have inverted the order. They are waiting for someone to celebrate what they have not yet produced, waiting for affirmation before they act, waiting for permission before they commit, waiting for the right conditions before they begin. And I want to challenge that inversion directly because the conditions will never be right. The critics will never be quiet. The doors will not open before you walk toward them. Confidence is not the reward that comes after courage. Confidence is the decision to act in alignment with your design, regardless of whether the environment is encouraging that action or not. Now, I want to address something very specifically because I see it in almost every person who struggles with what they call low confidence, and it is this. They have allowed their past failures to become their permanent identity. They had one business that did not work, and they concluded they are not business people. They had one relationship that broke, and they concluded they are not worthy of love. They gave one public presentation that went poorly, and they concluded they cannot speak. They treated a single event as a comprehensive verdict on their entire existence. And this is not wisdom. This is irresponsible interpretation of data. Let me give you the third principle. Failure is a report on a method, not a verdict on a person. Repeat that until it reconfigures how you process setbacks. Failure is a report on a method, not a verdict on a person. When a pharmaceutical company is testing a new compound and the trial produces unexpected results, they do not dissolve the company. They do not conclude that medicine itself is impossible. They go back to the laboratory, they study the data, they adjust the formula, and they try again. Because they understand that a failed trial is information, not condemnation. It is feedback, not finality. And the only difference between the scientist who adjusts the formula and the person who quits after a setback is that the scientist has a framework that allows them to separate the failure of the method from the validity of the mission. You need that framework. You need the ability to look at something that did not work, and instead of collapsing under the weight of it, you need to be able to stand over it, study it, extract the lesson, and move forward with more information than you had before. This is not a personality type. This is a skill. And skills can be developed, but only by people who have decided that their assignment is more important than their comfort. The people who change their world are never the people who are most comfortable. They are the people who are most committed. Let me take you now into something that most teachers of confidence avoid because it is uncomfortable, and it is this. Some of what you call low confidence is actually the result of living outside of your design, meaning you are trying to be confident in a role you were never built for. You are trying to perform at a level in a field that does not match your actual architecture. And the discomfort you feel is not weakness. It is misalignment. It is the same discomfort a fish would feel if it spent all its energy trying to climb a tree. The fish is not a failure. The fish is misassigned. And no amount of motivational speeches will make the fish feel confident as long as it is still in a tree. This is the fourth principle. You cannot build lasting confidence outside of your design. Confidence built outside of your design is always fragile, always dependent on external reinforcement, always one bad day away from collapse. But confidence built from the inside out, confidence rooted in the understanding of what you were specifically made to do, That confidence does not shatter when conditions change. It bends, but it does not break. It absorbs pressure, but it does not dissolve under it. Because it is not built on what people think of you, or what you have already achieved, or what the economy is doing. It is built on the understanding that you carry something specific, and that something is needed, and that you are the only one who can deliver it in the way you can. Now I want to tell you about a second thing buried in that cemetery I mentioned at the beginning. And it is this. Buried there are people who knew their assignment, who understood their gift, who even began walking toward it and then stopped. Not because someone took it from them, but because discipline became uncomfortable. Because the gap between where they were and where they were going felt too wide to maintain. Because they discovered that purpose is not free. It costs something. And they decided quietly, without ceremony, to stop paying. And they returned to comfort, returned to safety, returned to the known, and told themselves they would try again when things were easier. And easier never came. And the assignment waited. And eventually, the assignment moved on. The window closed, and they spent the rest of their lives with the quiet ache of an unlived potential. Let me submit to you. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is the price of it. The aircraft I mentioned earlier is only free to fly, because every single component was precisely constructed and rigorously tested before it ever left the ground. The freedom of flight cost the discipline of engineering and your freedom. The freedom to operate at full capacity, to live without apology, to walk into rooms and carry the weight of genuine contribution. That freedom costs the discipline of daily alignment with your design. It costs the discipline of choosing growth when comfort is available. It costs the discipline of honest self-assessment when self-deception is easier. It costs the discipline of staying when every comfortable instinct is telling you to go. This is the fifth principle. Confidence is built, not born. It is constructed through repeated acts of alignment with your design, even when those acts are difficult, even when no one is watching, even when the results are not yet visible. This is important. Even when the results are not yet visible. Because one of the most dangerous periods in any person's development is the period between commitment and evidence. The period where you have decided to walk in your design but nothing has confirmed that decision yet. The bank account has not changed. The recognition has not arrived. The relationships have not shifted. And in that period, the pressure to quit is at its highest, precisely because the evidence is at its lowest. And most people quit in that window. They interpret the absence of visible results as confirmation that they were wrong. But the absence of visible results in that window is not evidence against you. It is the nature of any process worth going through. Let me show you this in nature. A seed planted in the ground goes through a period of complete invisibility. No evidence above the surface. No external confirmation that anything is happening. And yet, below the surface, the seed is doing the most critical work of its entire existence. It is breaking open, releasing what is inside, sending roots downward, building the foundation that will eventually support everything visible. And if you were to dig up that seed in the middle of that process, or trying to check whether it was working, you would destroy the very progress you were trying to verify. The process requires you to hold your position without visible confirmation, because the most important work is always done underground. Your confidence must be able to survive the underground season, and it can only do that if it is not built on visible results. It can only do that if it is anchored to something that does not depend on what is currently visible. It must be anchored to your understanding of your design, your clarity of your assignment, and your commitment to the process that turns potential into output. This is not blind faith. This is informed trust. Trust based on the understanding that every designed thing operated according to its design in the right conditions will produce the result it was engineered to produce. Every time, without exception. Now let me shift, and I want to address directly the role of environment in the development of confidence. Because this is an area where many people are making decisions that are silently destroying their potential. Let me submit to you, your environment is not neutral. It is either feeding your design or starving it. It is either creating the conditions in which your assignment can grow, or it is suppressing those conditions. And many people are pouring enormous energy into building confidence, while simultaneously remaining in environments that are architecturally hostile to the thing they are trying to build. It is like trying to grow a tropical plant in Arctic conditions. You can water it every day. You can speak to it. You can invest in the best soil. But if the temperature is wrong, the environment itself will defeat every effort. This does not mean you must immediately abandon every uncomfortable environment. Sometimes your assignment requires you to be in a difficult environment for a season. But it means you must be honest about what your environment is doing to your development. It means you must stop using loyalty as an excuse for suppression. It means you must have the courage to ask, is this environment helping me become what I was designed to be? Or is it helping me remain what I have always been? Because remaining what you have always been when you were designed for expansion is not stability. It is stagnation with a better name. The sixth principle, you become the average of the environments you consistently inhabit. Not just the people, the environments, the conversations, the content, the problems you are surrounded by, the quality of thinking that is normalized around you. If the environment you live in does not expect greatness from you, you will spend enormous energy simply resisting the gravitational pull of low expectation. And most people are not aware that this pull exists because it is invisible. It does not announce itself. It works slowly, subtly, through normalized mediocrity, through the quiet ridicule of ambition, through the social pressure to not stand out, to not want too much, to not believe too loudly. And over time, that environment becomes the loudest voice in your development, louder even than your own conviction. So let me be practical. You must be intentional about upgrading your environments, not to be elite, not to be exclusive, but because your assignment requires conditions that support your growth. You must put yourself consistently in proximity to thinking that is bigger than your current experience. You must consume content that expands your understanding of what is possible. You must have at least one relationship in your life where the expectation of what you can become is higher than what you currently believe about yourself. Because none of us grows in isolation. We are all shaped by the environments we choose or allow or tolerate. And choosing your environments wisely is not arrogance. It is stewardship of your design. Now let me show you how to grow confidence that actually changes your life. I want to give you something you can work with, something concrete, something that has nothing to do with positive thinking or motivational phrases and everything to do with structural alignment. The first thing you must do is identify the specific domain in which you were designed to operate. Not the domain you were told to pursue, not the domain that pays the most, not the domain your family expected, the domain that when you engage with it, time disappears. The domain where your thinking accelerates naturally, where problems that other people find exhausting, you find genuinely interesting, where your curiosity is self-sustaining because you are not forcing yourself to care, you already do. That domain is the evidence of your design, and your confidence must be built there first. This is not permission to ignore discipline in other areas. A professional who operates in their design domain still needs financial literacy, still needs communication skills, still needs leadership capacity. But the core of their confidence must be rooted in their assignment. Because when you are operating in your design, you are not competing with anyone. You are simply being the most authentic version of what you were built to be. And it is very difficult to defeat someone who's being themselves, because there is no template for replication. You cannot copy what is original, and you cannot be replaced by what is generic, when what you carry is specific. The second thing you must do is begin. Not when conditions are right, not when you feel ready, not when the criticism has quieted down. Begin now with what you have, where you are. Because readiness is not a state you arrive at before you begin. Readiness is the state you develop by beginning. The person who waits until they feel ready will wait forever. Because the feeling of readiness comes from evidence of action 8. And the evidence of action 8 can only come from acting. This is circular by design. The only way to break the cycle of waiting is to act without the feeling. To act on the principle rather than the emotion. To say, I do not feel confident yet, but I understand my design. And I am going to move in alignment with it today and tomorrow and the day after. The third thing you must do is document your evidence. Every time you act in alignment with your design and it produces a result, no matter how small, write it down. Every time you face a difficulty and you choose your assignment over your comfort, write it down. Every time you have a conversation that demonstrates your gift, write it down. Because confidence is not just built by doing, it is built by remembering. And most people forget their victories faster than they forget their failures. They remember every humiliation in precise detail. but they cannot recall the last time they did something well without prompting. This imbalance is a data problem. Your brain needs accurate data about your capability, and you must deliberately provide that data by keeping a record of your evidence. At the end of every week for the next 90 days, write 3 answers to this question. Where did I operate in alignment with my design this week? Not where were you perfect. Not where did you get applause. Where did you operate in alignment with your design? The answer to that question, consistently gathered, consistently reviewed, will begin to construct a narrative about you that is more powerful than any narrative someone else has tried to build about you, because it is built on evidence. And evidence is more convincing than opinion. The 4th thing by, and perhaps the most important thing I will tell you, is this. You must stop negotiating with fear and start cross-examining it. Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a question, and the question is always, what is at stake here? And the answer to that question will tell you whether the fear is protecting you from genuine danger, or whether it is simply trying to protect your comfort from necessary disruption. Most of the fear that holds capable people back is not the first kind. It is the second kind. It is the fear of change, the fear of exposure, the fear of being seen and found wanting. And that kind of fear does not protect you. It imprisons you. And you must develop the discipline of cross-examining it when fear arrives. Do not run from it. Do not negotiate with it. Sit down with it. Ask it, what specifically are you afraid of? What is the worst that can happen? And if that worst happened, could you survive it? Could you learn from it? Could you begin again? And here is what you will discover almost every time. The worst case is survivable. It is painful, it is costly, it is humbling, but it is survivable. And the person who can look at the worst case and say, even that I can rebuild from A, is a person who cannot be permanently stopped. Because their confidence is not based on the absence of difficulty, it is based on the certainty of recovery. They do not fear falling, because they know how to get up. And the only way to know how to get up is to have gotten up before, which means you need to fall, you need to fail. You need to go through the difficult thing and come out the other side, carrying the evidence that difficulty does not have the final word on your existence. Let me tell you about a piece of steel that will never become a blade unless it passes through fire. The metallurgist understands this. You do not produce a blade worth carrying from steel that has never been tested under heat and pressure. The heat is not punishment. The heat is process. It is the mechanism by which the impurities are removed, by which the structure is reformed into something functional, by which the potential that was always in the raw material is finally expressed as a finished instrument. And every person in this room, every person who has gone through difficulty and survived, you have been in the fire. And the fire did not destroy you, it processed you. But you cannot benefit from the processing if you have decided the fire was only punishment. You must change your interpretation of what you survive, because what you survived is evidence of what you are made of. And what you are made of is the foundation of your confidence. This is the 7th principle. Your trials are curriculum, not catastrophe. Every difficult thing you have walked through carried a lesson that was relevant to your assignment. Every relationship that taught you pain gave you the capacity for empathy that your assignment requires. Every professional failure gave you the humility and the precision that your work now carries. Every season of confusion was the processing period that produced the clarity you now operate from. Nothing was wasted unless you wasted by refusing to learn from it. The only expensive failure is the one from which you extract no lesson. Every other failure is tuition. Now, let me rise to the top of what I want to say, because I need you to hear this at the level of your identity, not just at the level of your behavior. You were not created to live in the shadow of your potential. You were not designed to be a spectator of your own assignment. You were not built to watch less equipped people occupy the influence, the platforms, the opportunities that your design was specifically engineered for. And I say that not to make you arrogant. I say that to make you responsible. Because when you understand that what you carry is not yours alone, when you understand that your gift was given to you in trust too, for the benefit of others, the conversation about confidence shifts entirely. It stops being about your comfort and your feelings, and it becomes about your obligation. There are people whose lives you have not yet changed because you are still arguing with yourself about whether you are capable. There are problems in the world that remain unsolved. because the person designed to solve them is still sitting in the audience waiting for someone to give them permission to stand. There are ideas that have not been built that could change lives, that are sitting dormant inside you, behind the wall of your self-doubt. And every day you wait. Every day you negotiate with fear. Every day you choose comfort over assignment is a day those people go without what you were designed to give them. That is the true cost of a confidence crisis. It is not personal. It is civilizational. So let me say this with the full weight of everything I have given you today. Stop being a liability to your own design. Stop being the main obstacle between where you are and where your assignment is waiting for you. Stop making excuses that you have rehearsed so many times. They now sound like wisdom. They are not wisdom. They are sophisticated avoidance. And you are too gifted. And the world is too much in need for you to spend one more decade in sophisticated avoidance. You have been through enough to know who you are. You have survived enough to understand your strength. You have carried enough to recognize what you are capable of bearing. And what you are capable of bearing is the weight of your assignment. So bear it, walk under it, not crushed by it, but shaped by it. Walk in the direction your design demands, not the direction that requires the least courage. Do the thing that has been forming inside you for years, the thing you talk around but never name, the thing you have been protecting from the possibility of failure by never attempting it. Attempt it, begin it. Commit to it for 90 days without measuring results, and then measure. Build a daily practice that aligns your morning with your assignment. Before the world gets access to your attention, spend 30 minutes in the territory of your design. Read in it, think in it, produce something in it. Even something small, even something imperfect, because daily contact with your design is the mechanism by which confidence is accumulated. Not in grand gestures, but in consistent small acts of alignment. The aircraft was not built in one day. The blade was not hardened in one pass through the fire. The tree was not grown overnight. But every single day, in every single process, something was happening, something was building, something was becoming, and that something is what you must protect with your daily choices. Have one conversation this week that you have been avoiding because of what it might cost you. Make one decision that you know is aligned with your design, that you have been postponing because it is not yet comfortable. Take one step toward the thing you know you were built for, that you have been standing still in front of, treating the doorway as the destination, and then take another step next week and the week after. Not because the conditions are right, not because the fear is gone, but because your assignment is more important than your apprehension. Be disciplined enough to study your design continuously. The most confident people in any field are the most studied. They carry authority because they have earned it through rigorous engagement with the territory they operate in. They do not guess, they know, and they know because they have invested the time to know. That investment is available to you, not as a gift, as a discipline. Choose it. Stop comparing your process to other people's positions. You do not know what it cost them to get where they are. You do not know what they sacrificed, what they survived, what they lost on the way to what you are envying. Comparison is the most efficient way to destroy your confidence because you are always comparing your inside to someone else's outside, your doubt to their display, your process to their product. It is an unfair comparison and it produces an inaccurate result. And it costs you something you cannot afford to lose. Your attention. Put your attention back on your own design, your own assignment, your own daily alignment, and let other people's progress become inspiration, not indictment. And finally, let me say this. The confidence that changes your life is not the confidence that makes you feel invincible. It is the confidence that makes you consistent. It is the quiet. Set daily decision to show up as the person you were designed to be, even when no one is clapping. Even when the progress is invisible, even when the discomfort is significant. It is not the roar, it is the resolve. Not the noise, but the direction. Not the performance, but the production. Not the presence in the room, but the impact in the work. The cemetery will not have your best work. Your best work will be in the lives of the people you serve, in the problems you solve, in the systems you build, in the thinking you release into a world that is waiting for exactly what you carry. You were not born to impress star. You were born to impact. You were not made to be comfortable. You were made to be useful. You were not designed to live from the outside and from what people think to what you decide to become. You were designed to live from the inside out, from your design to your decision, to your daily discipline, to your destiny, Be original, not a copy. The world has enough copies. It is starving for originals. And you are an original. Operate like one. Think like one. Build like one. Deliver your specific work in your specific way, with your specific authority to the specific people who were always meant to receive it. The time for waiting is over. The time for excuses has expired. The time for rehearsing why you cannot tea, when everything inside you knows you can, it is finished. There is work to be done that only you can do, in a way that only you can do it, at a time that is precisely now. Die empty. The time is now.